Deputy MacSharry.
Thanks very much, Ken Corda, and thank you for accepting and including this very important issue today. I want to thank Minister for Stanton for coming here today, and while no disrespect to him, I am disappointed the Senior Minister couldn't be available given the issues at stake. I want to say, through my work in the Public Accounts Committee starting last January in questioning and researching for the questioning of the prison service and the Department of Justice, tens of prison officers throughout the country and prison staff from all over the country came to me unsolicited to share their concerns about what is going on within our prison service. Can I put on record very clearly, the vast majority of prison staff work extremely hard in a very difficult and challenging environment. They deserve our respect, our support, including proper remuneration, equipment, terms and conditions and facilities. And despite utterances by the Prison Officers Union, those facilities should include the availability of hot meals and the ability to avail of tuck shop facilities while on duty. A small number of prison staff at various levels, including senior ranks, sadly are supporting, nurturing and facilitating a culture of omerta. What goes on in this prison, what goes on in this prison service, stays in this prison service. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. With the evidence alleged to me, and indeed ye, through various protected disclosures, media reports, and indeed the Kilhenny report, which you're now sitting on for 3 months without publishing, it is clear to me that in some instances, Minister, there is a parallel investigative, judicial and prosecution system which exists within individual prisons and the Irish prison service. I'm sure you will agree, and certainly the Senior Minister, as a solicitor in private life, would agree we cannot allow this to continue. I have received, having met, as I said, tens of prison officers over the last period of months, including and received reports from them that victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault have been bought off and pressurised to accept money instead of going through due process with the Gardaí. It has been alleged to me, and proof provided, career blocking and spurious transfers have taken place against those who don't play ball, who don't row in with the few, who pursue and nurture corrupt procedures and systems. Misappropriation of state funds, where it is alleged a governor channelling funds and materials owned by the state to their favoured sporting clubs, organisations and charities. Even, listen to this one, Minister, having their homes decked out with prison materials from the prison workshop, put in by staff on duty for the prison service at the behest of the governor in question. A stores employee in another prison selling prison uniforms and equipment online, and when found out, was allowed to resign without any recourse to the rigours of the law, without any recovery to the state by people. Mess committees and tuck shops, profits being flagrantly used for sporting trips abroad, including a significant one, tens of thousands to Savannah and New York, to benefit just the few at the expense of the many. In terms of illegal surveillance, I have evidence, as do you, and you are sitting on it, that covert cameras were put in place to monitor prison officers in their workplace who weren't implicated or suspected of any wrongdoing. Covert listening devices were placed in visiting boxes, listening to solicitors and their clients, betraying the age-old law that we must respect this confidentiality. Covert cameras at Portlaoise Hospital to monitor prison staff, but of course also the poor Joe Soap, who goes in to have their medical issues dealt with. Surveillance of prison staff outside the prison environment. Indeed, a company, AOC Security Solutions, was paid $28,500 by the state, and that's all we know about, to carry out this work, and it has been alleged to me that they were provided with false identifications to get into prison and install equipment to spy on hard-working prison staff, and we're paying for it.
Thank you, Deputy.
Yeah, thank you, Ceann Comhairle. I want to thank Deputy MacSharry for raising these very, very serious issues here this evening. I also want to convey the apologies of the Minister Flanagan, who is dealing with the Judicial Appointments Commission bill in the Shannon as we speak. so he cannot be here, but certainly he will note with great interest what the Deputy across has said. As the Deputy is aware, Ceann Comhairle, the Inspector of Prisons furnished the Minister with a copy of the report of an investigation carried out under Section 31 of the Prisons Act 2007 into allegations of improper surveillance and other wrongdoings in prisons. The Minister is considering the report in the light of recent advice from the Attorney General with a view to publishing it in accordance with Section 31 of the Prisons Act 2007. This will provide the basis for consideration of what further steps may need to be taken. It is Minister Flanagan's intention to publish that report as soon as possible. I can also advise the Deputy that there are a number of policies and procedures available both within the Department of Justice and Equality and in the Irish Prison Service in respect to the various issues raised. All matters relating to bullying, harassment and sexual harassment are addressed by the Irish Prison Service under its Dignity at Work policy. In relation to assaults, any criminal act carried out within our prisons, including an assault on a staff member, should be reported to An Garda Síochána for investigation and prosecution. The Irish Prison Service policies in relation to dignity at work, protected disclosures and the grievance process are accessible to all employees of the Irish Prison Service. I can also advise the Deputy that there is an extensive financial control environment in place in the Irish Prison Service. As part of the Irish Prison Service protected disclosures policy, workers are encouraged to report any concerns about relevant wrongdoing which come to their attention in connection with their employment without fear of penalisation. In respect of an independent prison inspectorate, Ireland has signed the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture, but has yet to ratify this instrument. The protocol is preventative in nature and provides for the establishment of national preventative mechanisms which would inspect facilities where a person is held involuntarily. This instrument impacts on a number of sectors, and a consultation process with key stakeholders took place during 2018. On foot of these consultations, a draft scheme is being prepared, which the Minister intends to circulate to stakeholders for their comments as soon as possible, before it is finalised for submission to Government for approval and transmission to the Office of the Parliamentary Council for formal drafting this year. But again, I take note of what the Deputy has raised here this evening, and I will ensure that the Minister is made aware of it and that it comes to his attention. It's very serious issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy MacSharry.
Minister, I appreciate that there's a pre-prepared statement for you to read out, and I appreciate you being here today. But simply, I am doing this with the benefit of Dáil privilege here today, because the shutters come down, whether it's at the PAC, the Justice Committee, the media, parliamentary questions, oral or written. Everybody knows what's going on, but nobody wants to know. And what I want government to do is to publish the Kilhenny report. But because of the mismanagement of this illegal surveillance that went on under your watch, the state is liable to cases being taken by many prison staff who are illegally surveilled, prisoners, solicitors and so on, which could expose the state to an awful lot of money. So get on, publish the report. But beyond that, what we need, and I'm calling specifically on you to get the Minister to acknowledge me calling for this and give a response. We need to establish an independent inspectorate of the prison service, at arm's length from the prison service, with GSOC-style statutory powers. The Inspector of Prisons does not have the power to insist on documentation, for example, in the report that you recently carried out. A GSOC style would. And the staff themselves are terrified. Of the 20 or 30 I've met, some have made protected disclosures, most have not. Why? Because there is no confidentiality with protected disclosures. It goes around that X made a protected disclosure. X is labelled a rat. X is intimidated, X is ostracised, and the system goes on. And the system goes on. So we want an independent inspectorate, GSOC style, with statutory powers and appropriate resources, to give staff, hard-working prison staff, the confidence that they can go to them and that they're above reproach. They do not have that now because the Protective Disclosures Act, in that sense, does not function within the prison service. Secondly, I would call that under the 2004 Commission of Investigations Act, that you immediately commence an investigation into corruption in our prison service among the chosen few. The vast majority, as I said, and I'm pains to point out, are very hard-working and want to get on with their lives and do their best they can. In issues to do with misappropriation of state funds, I've given examples, sexual harassment, intimidation, career blocking and illegal surveillance. It's simply nothing less will do. We owe it to the prison service. We owe it to hard-working prison staff. We've faced some of our demons in this country in the past with clerical abuse. We've cleaned up politics a little bit with the Standards and Public Office Commission. We've made a start with the Gardaí, and it's time we rooted out the small number that are nurturing a corrupt culture
Thank
within
you,
the prison
Deputy.
service. Thank you.
Minister, to conclude, please.
Thanks very much. I certainly will bring these matters to the attention of the Minister, and I can assure the Deputy that he will treat these very seriously, as he is treating the report that he has at the moment. And as I say, he does intend to publish that as soon as possible. But there are policies and processes in place to deal with many of the issues raised by the Deputy, I'm advised. The financial procedures in place in the Irish Prison Service and in the Department are comprehensive and deal with the assignments of responsibilities, accountability, reporting arrangements and audit, safeguarding of assets, risk and cost control. In respect of protected disclosures, the policy and procedures in place are designed to ensure that all protected disclosures will be subject to an appropriate investigation by independent external investigators. The Irish Prison Service further commits that any resulting actions arising from investigations will be undertaken as soon as possible in the circumstances. Further, as part of its commitment to protecting workers who make protected disclosures, the Irish Prison Service has signed and complies with, as I said, the Integrity at Work pledge to ensure that that workers reporting wrongdoings will not face penalisation and that appropriate action will be taken in response to protected disclosures. And I would also like to add that if the Deputy has any evidence of a crime being committed or serious wrongdoing, that he should consider bringing this to the attention of the relevant authority as soon as possible. And the Gardaí. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes